Well, we've had a bit of time since Nintendo was forced to play their hand early and begrudgingly announce the Switch 2 in perhaps the most underwhelming console announcement I've ever seen. Not the Switch 2 itself, I'm definitely looking forward to that, rather the way it was announced. Although I will say that shadow dropping a console announcement via a random morning YouTube video is very on brand for 2020's Nintendo. The Switch 2 is basically what we all assumed it would be. The Nintendo Switch, again, but a little better. This is very much DS to 3DS, taking the same concept and just enhancing it with beefier hardware and a few unique features. I think that's basically what we all expected, and probably what the majority of us were hoping for. There's lots to ponder about in regards to the Switch 2, but naturally as a Zelda guy, my immediate thought went to how the new console might impact the Legend of Zelda series, and what the Switch 2 could mean for Zelda moving forward. I've managed to nail my thoughts down to 4 major points. For my first point, I want to talk about the forbidden topic, the Wii U ports. Ooh. I honest to goodness think there's a very real chance that we finally get ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD to the Switch 2. Now hear me out before you click off this video. Look, I get it, videos predicting the HD ports coming to the Switch are a dime a dozen. Literally every Nintendo Direct to ever happen has been accompanied by 6,000 videos from Zelda tubers and Nintendo YouTubers predicting the announcement of the HD ports. But while I would say that if you're a new viewer, I can understand you side-eyeing my claim, longtime viewers would know that I've generally been quite skeptical towards the idea of the ports coming to the Switch at all when they weren't announced for the anniversary. But I feel as though change is afoot. I think there might have been a number of different reasons why the ports never made it to the Switch. They might have ran into optimization issues while they were porting the games forward, or maybe they just felt like it would be a better business decision to hold off. It's difficult to say, and I don't really think any of their reasons can be totally justified, but regardless, the Switch 2 solves all of their problems. If it was an optimization issue, well, the Switch 2 is going to be much stronger. If it was a marketing or timing issue, well, boom, you have a brand new clean slate to fill up for launch titles. In fact, I think the Wii U ports would make fantastic launch titles, or at least early lifetime releases, to hold people over until the first major wave of first-party releases. I have to assume Nintendo knows this too. The Big N makes some pretty perplexing decisions sometimes, but I can't think they are so blind as to leave that much money on the table by just never porting over the Wii U games, and my best guess is that they had a master plan for them. I think their master plan is to save the Wii U ports for Switch 2 launch titles. Call it a hunch, but it's one I haven't suggested very often and I feel pretty strongly about. My second point also relates to ports, and it's that I think with the Switch 2, we may get ports of the DS Zelda games, specifically Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. The reason I think this is likely is because we now have 2 separate paths that Nintendo can take to simulate the stylus controls. Firstly, Nintendo filed patents that essentially suggest the idea of an attachable second screen that basically turns the handheld Switch into a makeshift DS. The bottom screen would be your primary Switch with touch controls just like the DS, and so it's obvious how the DS games could make the transition over. It would be pretty one-to-one. The downside with this theory is firstly that patents never guarantee anything, and Nintendo has filed many patents that have never been made reality. Secondly, this would mean the games are only playable in handheld mode, which would be fine but isn't ideal. The more likely idea revolves around one of the Switch 2's new features, and that's the ability for the Joy-Con to be tilted on their side and be used as a mouse. Understandably, the first place most people's brains went to upon seeing this was the potential that it had for strategy games, myself included. But it wasn't long before I realized that the mouse feature could be used to replicate stylus controls as well. Emulators have been doing this for years. It's already a solved problem in that field. And we know that Nintendo has no problem borrowing technology from emulators, so it's very possible that we could see Nintendo explore this idea. Using the Joy-Con mouse to emulate stylus controls has its own flaws for sure. I imagine it would be a bit unwieldy to control with the Joy-Con on its side, attempting to use it as a mouse while also utilizing the buttons. And I don't know if most people have the dexterity to use one Joy-Con sideways and another Joy-Con upright. But I do think it is something that people could eventually adapt to, and it's better than nothing. As well, you might think the display on the TV would be odd, as 2 stacked screens in the middle of your TV might seem too odd for Nintendo to go with, but that was already a configuration on the Wii U port of the game, and I thought it worked alright. I understand that regardless of if they went with the dual screens or the mouse controls, there are going to be concessions made either way, but I think the fact that there are two possible paths to the DS ports making it to the Switch 2 means that the idea of Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks making their way over is at least within the realm of possibility. My final 2 points both relate to the confirmation of the Switch 2 having backwards compatibility with the original Switch. First, while I definitely understand this isn't a guarantee, I can't help but think about the possibility of the Switch 2, retroactively improving Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Both games ran pretty well, all things considered, but they were definitely not strangers to the slowdown that was so ubiquitous to the Switch. It didn't bother me much with Breath of the Wild, but I found the lag that occurred when using Ultra Hand in Tears of the Kingdom to be genuinely quite bothersome, and it did impact my experience to a small degree. I've spent a lot of time playing both these games on emulators, and I know what a joy it can be, and I can't help but think about how fantastic it would be if these games were able to access the Switch 2's beefier specs while playing on it. I know it isn't a guarantee, I'm not a big tech guy, but I'm pretty sure that one common method to doing backwards compatibility is to limit access to things like memory to exactly what they had on their original console for the sake of compatibility, and that very well may be the case with the Switch 2's backwards compatibility. But what if it isn't? Or what if Nintendo develops special exceptions for certain games, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? Heck, even Age of Calamity would be massively improved if it could run on some beefier specs. I might even be able to stomach a split-screen playthrough then. Anyways, again, I know this isn't a guarantee, but it definitely is a possibility that I'm sure Nintendo has at least considered. The last point I wanted to bring up relates not just to backwards compatibility, but to everything we've talked about so far, and it's this. The Switch 2 has the potential to be the ultimate Zelda console in a way unlike anything before it. What I mean by that is the Switch 2 could end up being a one-stop shop for Zelda fans with access to basically every mainline game in the series and a good number of spin-offs. I mean, think about it. Every game from The Legend of Zelda for the NES up to right before Wind Waker, as well as Minish Cap, will already be available on the console via Nintendo Switch Online, assuming that cleanly transfers over. Then we have Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD as launch titles or early titles. Eventually we get Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks using the mouse controls. Skyward Sword HD is of course playable thanks to backwards compatibility. Same with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Echoes of Wisdom, and the Link's Awakening remake. Finally, we have the release of the next mainline Zelda game for the console as well. The only games missing are Four Swords Adventures, A Link Between Worlds, and Triforce Heroes. Four Swords Adventures could be ported over at any time, and I think they could make the 3DS games work too if they wanted to, but even without them, that would be an insane 19 Zelda games available on the Switch 2, not even counting spin-offs that would be backwards compatible like Hyrule Warriors and Cadence of Hyrule. How insane would that be? The Switch 2 truly could be the Zelda console to end all Zelda consoles. And those are the 4 ways that I think the Switch 2 could impact the future of The Legend of Zelda. I think the day may finally actually come that Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD make it to a Switch console. There are a number of paths that the DS games have to be ported over as well, via the dual screen patent or the Joy-Con mouse functionality. It's possible that backwards compatibility for games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom could retroactively improve the performance of those games, and if all of the above happens, the Switch 2 has the ability to become the greatest Zelda console in history. What do you think? Am I off base here, or do you think I might be onto something with any of these? Let me know in the comments below. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you'd like to support me, you can do so by liking or sharing the video, leaving a comment, or coming over to my Discord to chat with me directly. As always, thanks for watching, and stay safe out there, because, it's dangerous to go alone.